Hello, everybody. Sorry, my lip syncing is going to look a little stupid here, but I didn't have my camera and my microphone hooked up. So anyway, my jackhammer hasn't been working. So when I move the cord back and forth, it will turn it on and off. I have clipped the end of this cord off about 3 or 4 times. It works for a while and then it stops working. So I was up at my cabin and I remembered that I bought some super heavy duty cable and I didn't use all of it. So I've been saving it for the last 20 years in case I needed it. So I cleaned all the dust off first, and then now I'm going to use my DeWalt drill and take the handle apart. I noticed one of the screws are missing, so I got to find another one for it. The cable holders were cracked, but I think that they will still hold everything pretty good, so I'm not going to make a new one. So it's really weird because how it was wired here is they have the green goes to the red and the brown goes to the black, and it just didn't make sense to me. So what I had to do was take it apart, and then I had to trace with my meter which wire went where. This little the cable protector was all cracked really bad, so I didn't have another one here. I do have several of them up at my cabin, but of course I'm not there, and that's a long ways away. So I found this tubing that seems to be about the right size, but it's a little bit tight, even if I sprayed it with WD-40. So what I'm going to do is put the end in the vise and see if I can push it in. And if that doesn't work, there's a trick I learned from putting motorcycle grips on handlebars, is you use the air compressor and you put air in the end of it and it blows it up kind of like a balloon slightly, and then it makes the diameter bigger and you can slip it on. And that's what I end up doing, because it's like the WD-40 seemed to be almost like glue. It would go on for a second, it would stop, and then I couldn't get it back off very easily. It was really tough. But I don't ever give up. I just keep going and going and going until I get done what I need to get done. So I fired up the air compressor, put the end in the vise, sprayed it down good. Going to put that pipe over the tube over the end. Of course, that's going to just act as a little bit of a cable protector there to prevent a stress point. I put the air compressor on, it went right on, but it won't go quite far enough, so I ended up trimming the end off a little bit and then pulling in the vise and pulling it out. This is something that you can do on any tool, just a jackhammer. And I'm cutting the cable here, and it's a 12 gauge wire, which is it's an overkill, but it's just a really nice piece of cable wire here. And it's really all of the pieces are really rubbery. It's not that plastic feel like the wire that was on this jackhammer. This jackhammer is a really inexpensive unit. I think it was like $100 or something, but I have used it a lot. I've dug holes with this thing. I've dug trenches. I have other videos where I have used it. You can look how I used it, and I made a little trolley for it so it would actually dig trenches for my landscaping in my backyard, and it really has done a lot of work. I've done a lot of hole digging for planting, And up at the cabin, I used it when there was big rocks in the holes I was digging to put posts in the ground. I just used the jackhammer and just jackhammered right through the rocks. They weren't huge rocks. I mean, they were the biggest one was probably the size of like a volleyball, but that was out of the ordinary. So I fire up my soldering iron because the wire is so big it won't go around the screw. So what I'm going to do is put an electrical end on the wire and then solder it. I always like soldering it. Crimping to me is not really an option. I have very bad luck with crimping wires, so I always solder them. And when you solder, you want to get the parts hot and let the solder melt from the hot parts, but sometimes you have to put enough solder on the wire and the soldering iron first to conduct that heat you need to get it hot enough. But always make sure that it gets hot enough so when you touch the soldering wire on the part, it will absorb in. And this is, of course, got some rosin flux built inside the soldering wire. And then I always flip it to get all the excess solder off. Otherwise, it's got a big bulge or bulb of solder on it. And if you just flip it a little bit like I did there, it just really has worked good for me through the years. These wires are so big that the wire nuts that were on there were not big enough. They wouldn't even go around that new wire that's so big. So I've had to go get some. This is the ones that are too little. I had to go find some other ones to put on there. The only ones I could find right offhand were green ones, which are usually used for ground or for home wires when you do the solid wire, and they worked really good. You can also put some heat shrink tubing on the end of it and then solder those together. And that's what I was going to do if the wire nuts didn't work out okay, but they seem to work just fine. And then that makes it a little bit easier if I ever have to do this again, but I have a feeling I will not have to. And again, from the factory, what they did, they used the yellow wire as the ground, and they used the brown and the white, or the brown and the red as the power, the hot neutral. So I had to figure out which ones went where. And me with my fumble fingers, I have a little neuropathy. My index finger and my middle finger on my right hand are completely numb for some reason. Last week, they just decided to go numb on me, and I don't know what the heck is happening, but that's what happened, and I guess I just have to live with it. I could go over all of my ailments, but people don't really want to hear the cancer survivor, the neuropathy in the legs, the Barrett's disease, and I think I have some other things wrong with me too, but no one wants to hear that, and that's okay. I wouldn't want to hear it if you told me all the time, but that it is what it is. And again, I keep dropping stuff. So I'm putting the cable clamp on now. Sorry that I'm still using my iPhone. If I continue to do my videos, I think I'm going to have to get me a better camera. Maybe people will watch more of my videos Right now, no one seems to be super excited to see a lot of my videos. I have right now I have 180 videos, 105,000 views, but I only have 153 subscribers. So I'm hoping one day that I can get my subscribers up, and my ultimate goal, just a goal of mine, is to, I'm sure I'll never make any money off this, but it would be fun to get some tools or supplies or something donated to my channel so I can try them and test them. Here's an old heavy-duty outlet that I had, and some idiot put a Romex wire on here, which you're not supposed to do. I wonder who did that. Just joking, that was me. And I have to take all that apart, and these wires again are so big that they could barely fit on this outlet, but they do work. One thing to remember too is I tried this once and I don't recommend it. What I did is I got the wire and I twisted it together and I soldered it and tinned it so it was nice and compact and it fit in so well. But what I noticed is, and I would not recommend you doing this, because when you put that in there and you tighten it down, it has high spots on the solder, so it will only contact in a very little tiny place. So the wire actually overheated and melted everything. So again, I'm no electrician, but I have wired a lot of things in a lot of homes, and I would not recommend tinning the end of that wire to put in there. Just keep twisting it, open it up as far as you can, and keep going for it. And yeah, I just cut my finger there, but that's typical. I have to get injured every time I do something, or it just isn't fun, I guess. Injuries. My hands are all cut up through the years of doing stuff. Building, repairing, I really enjoy doing it, but I always get injured. Something I do, and what I kind of like to do is kind of roll the wire, and I don't like cutting my workbench up, so I have a piece of limestone here that I do my work on, so it doesn't damage my workbench, even though my workbench is pretty rustic. It's just made out of pallet wood. This is my little tiny workshop in my garage down in the valley here, and I have a huge garage and workshop up in the mountains where I built my cabin and my unattached garage. If you ever want the videos, it's on a short. I have like a 18-part series on building my cabin, and they're all shorts. So in literally 18 minutes, you can watch how I built my cabin from start to finish. I usually do shorts because people watch shorts more. People don't like, for some reason, watching my long ones. Maybe because I ramble on too much. But anyway, when you put the wires together on these outlets, same with house wires, the gold screw always has the hot or the black hook to it. And the silver screw, the neutral, always has the white wire hook to it. And I don't know how, but they do this, but you can really put these screws in tight without stripping them. But this is a good heavy duty name brand. I think it's a Hubbell plug, which is very good quality. So you can really crank on these screws and they won't strip out. I've had the cheaper ones that I've got before where nothing is hardened or anything, and you put the screws in this tight, it's going to strip them. but this really is good because everything's hardened. And what I'm going to do before I put everything back together, I'm going to put this plug together, and then I am going to try it before I put the handle together, because I want to make sure that I have this wired right. I normally wouldn't do that if all the wires were the right color, but I'm just a little bit nervous because of I have yellow wires, white wires, black wires, brown wires, and black, brown, green, and red. There are just so many different colors. I just want to make sure I get them all done right here. And I'm using my little 12-volt DeWalt drill to do all this work, and I really like that drill. It's tiny, lightweight. It doesn't have the power of the 18-volt one, but it does pretty darn good. And this little tiny itty bitty battery is so light and nice, and of course it doesn't have the range or the run time as the bigger batteries, but it really doesn't matter to me, because when I want to do something heavy duty, I usually break out my Milwaukee drill, my Milwaukee 18-volt drill, hammer drill. It is just a beast. It is so powerful, but it's pretty heavy. And so doing something light like this, it really is just not necessary, and it's awkward for something super light duty like this. And so I have a picture of this at the very beginning. I think this was an extreme power jackhammer, and except for the cord being lightweight, like I say, I have really used and abused this jackhammer, and I've even bought the shovel attachment where you put on it. It's just been a very reliable, good, hard-hitting, wonderful tool of mine that I have used over the years. I wouldn't be afraid of getting an off-brand jackhammer. Maybe if that's all you did all day long with it, you'd probably want to get a Makita or something that's heavier duty. But boy, this thing has really been good. Thank you.